I want to draw cute girls. So let's study an artist who does. Sho, the artist of Suzerain, Sidoroka, and Susuro from Arknights. What makes these characters cute, how to proportion cute characters like this, and overall rendering is what I will study today. And then I will create a drawing in Sho's style. So what makes something cute? You can see Sho's characters obviously have big ears, big eyes, and a big head almost as wide as their shoulder width. But more accurately, it's the proportion of these parts that make them cute. These ears only look big in comparison, or proportion to the head, because the length from the base to the tip is only a little bit smaller than the width of the face. The eyes look big only because it takes up about 1/3 the width of the face. And the width and the height of the head is almost equal to the width of the shoulders, making the head look big in comparison to the rest of the body. These comparisons are consistent across many characters. So when people use the word proportion, I just think of how does the length or width of this part look like in comparison to this part. But how do you use proportions to make cute characters consistently? Use simple shapes to understand the lengths and widths of each part, to map out the proportions of the character first before anything else. If not in the canvas, then at least in your head. Here's a 15-minute sketch I made to show this. Since we are studying Sho and we know the estimated proportions of the ears, eyes, and head, we can replicate them before drawing the details. The length of the ears are approximately the width of the head, and then using the size of the head, we can estimate the shoulders. The distance from the bottom of the eyes to the tip of the chin is about the length of 1.5 eyes, making a cute squished face. By using the same proportions or lengths and widths over and over, there's consistency across characters. When I think of proportions, I always have one shape that I use for comparison to everything else. If you noticed, I almost always compare the length of certain parts to the face or the eyes, because the face or eyes is generally the first thing I draw when starting a sketch. So the length and width of everything else is based on that initial size of the face and head. If you draw the feet first, then you need to compare the size of everything else in relation to the size of the feet, since that's the first thing you draw. If I draw the head bigger, then the size of everything else must become bigger as well, since I am comparing the length of parts in relation to the head. To be honest, it doesn't look like the line art or rendering is too airbrushed, since you can see a lot of the strokes here, here, and here. It looks pretty similar to how I do things, so I'll just show my rough way to paint over or render things in detail. In general, after I block in the overall shape of the shadow, what we are rendering is the edge or gradient between where the shadow ends and the light begins. To make this gradient with a hard brush, I keep the opacity of the brush the same, around 50 to 95%, but with each stroke, I color pick and overlap the next stroke again and again. It's not a smooth gradient, but if you prefer it smoother, you can just use a smudge tool or a soft brush. To make the transition longer, you can increase the opacity of the brush or make the brush size bigger. For example, let's try and render the parts of this sleepy Miku and Rin. On this part, the gradient between the shadow and light is pretty short, so I'm using a brush at 75% opacity and size 12 to render, while here the brush used to create a wider gradient is still at 75% opacity, but at size 20. And of course, you can smoothen with the smudge tool. With really sharp transitions, I just use a smaller brush to color pick, and then 1 or 2 swipes is good enough for a sharper edge. In this specific Sho study though, I also noticed that the further the objects are rendered, the less saturated they get. And the background usually had one main color, like here with the yellow and here with the green. A few rough brushes are used for the edges and some textures, like the background clouds and rocks. So, 5 unofficial rules to copy follow Sho's style is 1. Use these proportions for the ears, eyes, and head specifically. 2. Render with a hard brush. 3. Use some rough brushes for the edges and background. 4. The further the objects, the less saturated they are. And 5. Pick a main color for the background and stick with it. But that's enough talking. Let's get to the speed paint. here's my final study. If I did this again, I think the composition could be a little less static and have better placement of the crushers floating in the background. The mood is also a little weird, but I wanted to juxtapose the cuteness of the character in calm skies with how dangerous and powerful she is. Also, if I had more time, I would like to render the background a little bit better, but I do think I met the cute girl objectives, so I'm a bit happy it all worked out. Thanks for watching. See ya!